He was having words with Jimmy Butler on the way down. Here's the dish by Brown, and here's the shot made by Williams. And look at the words already.
A few moments later.
Williams defends Butler. A bump, the grind, the gyration, and the two in the foul. Shot clock at 4. Here he accelerates and finds 2. Butler drives Andre Williams, and a 15-footer will tie it at 100.
This is what he wants.
Inside for the lead. He got it.
Stop! He's already dead.
One thing I love about the NBA playoffs is trash talking and guys who back up their trash talking. And looking at this year's playoffs, one of the themes has been role players talking like superstars. The most notorious example being Dillon Brooks, an absolute scrub, picking a fight with LeBron James, one of the greatest players in NBA history. And for Dillon, picking that fight didn't go as he would have expected. As in the series, he was embarrassed, clowned relentlessly, and shot 31% from the field, and not scoring above 15 points in any game. Dillon Brooks is a prime example of punching above your weight class. And looking at Dillon Brooks 2.0, we have the immortal Grant Williams, who also made a grave mistake. As in Game 2 versus Boston, in a crucial game, season on the line, he trash-talked Jimmy Buckets of all players. Not the smartest idea to trash-talk Jimmy, who in the Eastern Conference has been by far the best player this postseason. And looking at Grant himself, last year in the playoffs, he was a big piece of their finals run. But this year, for the most part, he's been benched and an afterthought in every series. But finally in Game 2, he got his big moment to shine versus Jimmy and the Heat. And I will give Grant some credit, he played pretty well. Knocked down some corner threes, he was hustling, making timely passes, and really playing great for Grant Williams standards. And I think Grant Williams playing pretty decent got him kind of hyped up, out of his element, and forgetting he's still Grant Williams. As midway through the fourth quarter, Boston had a pretty healthy 9-point lead, until Grant Williams trash-talked Jimmy after making a 3. Once again, not a wise choice to talk trash to the hottest guy in this series. And like many said, don't poke the bear late in the fourth quarter. As after that moment, Jimmy went absolutely nuts, coming down the court immediately, got to his spot, pump fake, foul, and 1 plus the free throw. And for the next 4 plays, Jimmy Butler once again went down there, got 8 straight points, the game tying basket, and the go-ahead basket. And if you see these shots, they are heavily contested, and it's not bad defense by any standard. But for Jimmy in the fourth quarter, something comes over him, he's possessed, and talking trash to him is not what you do in the big time moments if you're Grant Williams. As even versus Milwaukee in the first round, in Milwaukee in Game 5, Jrue Holiday was kind of jawing with him. And Jimmy in that game, his Heat team, they were down by 9 points. That is a rarity in the NBA today, a player talking trash when they're actually down. Jimmy in that regard is an old school player. And as a Boston fan myself, seeing him trash talk while being down is greatly appreciated, even if he's kicking our butt. And one thing we can debate about the Celtics, is it a wise move to let Grant Williams go one-on-one with Jimmy for 4 straight plays? Some would say Joe Mazzulla was setting up Grant Williams to fail, as when you're a role player, you're not getting the ball on offense every play like Jimmy. And if you talk trash to him, you better rise to the occasion and at least stop him from scoring at will. And I think it is pretty funny, looking at Dillon Brooks and Grant Williams, they're almost mirror images of each other. As in last year's playoffs, both these guys were extremely valuable. But this year, their roles were reduced, they were a net negative in this trash talking department, and their antics very easily cost them a contract. As looking at Grant, he is notorious for talking above his weight class. As versus Cleveland, he had the iconic "I'm gonna make them both" comments. That moment versus Cleveland was an omen for this Heat series when Grant talks trash. As looking at Jimmy, his clutch time resume and his legend in general continues to grow by the game. As for the entire playoffs in the fourth quarter, he is averaging 8.7 points on 50% shooting, 33% from 3, and 84% from the line. And versus Boston, he has a total of 17 points in the fourth quarter on 44% shooting. Compared to Brown and Tatum, who only have 20 combined on below 30% shooting. Like we saw in 2020, even last year, Jimmy in the playoffs rises to the occasion, compared to some stars who get slightly worse or even drastically worse. And I think universally, everyone knows Jimmy now is a top 10 player at the worst. And looking back 2 months ago, this Heat team, they looked dead in the water. As in the season, they have the second worst offense in the entire NBA. And versus the Hawks in the play-in, at home, lost as the favorite. And even versus the Bulls, late in that game, Chicago was up by 5 points as the 10th seed. This run by Jimmy so far is stuff of legend. If he makes the finals, wins the championship, that is 95 Rockets, Hakeem Olajuwon, 2011 Dirk, that type of ring. As for an 8 seed team to win the championship, mine is Tyler Hero. That seems virtually impossible if you asked me 2 months ago. And speaking of chances, how did the Heat only have 3% chance to beat Boston in this series? I don't know what ESPN analytics are talking about, but this series coming into it, it was 50-50 as both these teams are evenly matched. One is well coached and one has more talent. And so far, the better coached team, the more cohesive team, is up 2-0 and possibly 3-0. And once again, I do want to dedicate Game 2 to the immortal Grant Williams, who cost Boston a 1-1 split. So that right there is the end of the video. As always, don't trash talk Jimmy, and I'll see you next time.